Most men spend their entire lives stuck in confusion. They chase love, validation, and happiness from women, believing that if they just try hard enough, they'll finally find the one. But what usually happens? They end up heartbroken, used, or trapped in situations they never wanted. Now here's the shocking part. 200 years ago, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stripped away the illusions and exposed the raw truth about female nature. His ideas were so uncomfortable, so brutally honest, that even today, most men refuse to accept them. And yet, if you actually pay attention, you'll see exactly where you've been deceived and how to finally take back control of your own life. So listen closely, because what you're about to hear isn't just controversial, it's the missing piece that most men will never grasp. Schopenhauer didn't deal in fairy tales. He didn't believe in the idea of soulmates or romantic destiny. He looked at love for what it really is, and in his eyes, it wasn't a sacred spiritual bond. It wasn't magic. It was nature's trick, a ruthless biological illusion designed with one purpose only: reproduction. Think about that for a second. Every time you feel that electric spark of attraction, that obsession that makes you think, she's the one, that pull so powerful you'd give up everything for it, your brain isn't connecting with her soul, it's calculating, subconsciously measuring fertility, genetic compatibility, survival advantages. That's the hidden program running beneath the surface. And here's where it gets interesting. Women experience the exact same thing, just with different priorities. While men might be drawn toward youth, beauty, and signs of fertility, women are wired to look for status, security, and strength. Not out of cruelty, not out of malice, but because that's how nature ensures survival.
Schopenhauer once wrote, "Love is the ultimate goal of almost all human effort. It is more important than anything else in life." But he didn't mean this in a romantic, heartwarming way. He meant it as a trap. Love is nature's bait, a fleeting chemical high that evaporates the moment its purpose has been served. Look around you. How many men have completely destroyed themselves for a woman who eventually walked away without a second thought? How many marriages crumble once the initial passion is gone? That isn't random chance. That's design. That's biology doing what it was built to do. And here's the brutal truth Schopenhauer hammered home. Women don't choose men based on fairness, loyalty, or even logic. They choose based on an ancient selection program coded deep inside them. Status, security, genetic advantage. Those are the currencies. A man's devotion, no matter how pure or intense, means nothing if he can't provide those things. Schopenhauer observed this clearly. In his words, women are rarely guided by reason. They are guided by instinct and emotion. And that's not misogyny. That's simply observation. You don't have to look far to see it. Just open a dating app and watch how 80% of women compete for the top 20% of men. Look at divorce courts where the person who commits is often rewarded with financial ruin. Look at history where kings fought wars and even lost their lives over mistresses who later betrayed them. The pattern is as old as humanity itself. The problem is that most men misunderstand this. They believe love is mutual, that if they sacrifice enough, care enough, prove themselves enough, they'll eventually be rewarded with loyalty. But Schopenhauer warned, to be loved, one must not just be just, but clever. In other words, women don't fall for nice, they fall for strength. Not just physical strength, but social power, financial security, and psychological dominance. That's why the good guy so often finishes last. Not because he's unworthy, but because he's playing the wrong game. Here's the painful lesson. Love isn't earned through endless service. Women, by instinct, are drawn to men who don't need to serve. Ever notice how a woman often loses interest once she's fully secured a man? How the chase seems to reverse? Schopenhauer called this the tragedy of possession. The thrill isn't in having, it's in conquering. Once the conquest is complete, biology pushes her to move on, and the men who cling too hard, who revolve their entire lives around her, are usually the ones who watch her walk away. But here's the twist that changes everything. This isn't women's fault. It's not some evil plan. It's nature. And the man who truly understands this truth stops blaming women and starts strategizing. Schopenhauer's lesson isn't to hate women, it's to see them clearly, to recognize that love isn't some divine fantasy, it's a negotiation. And the man who comes into that negotiation from weakness is guaranteed to lose. And that's only the beginning, because Schopenhauer's next insight, it's even darker. It explains why modern men are being outplayed in every arena and how to finally flip the script. Stay with me, because what comes next is where most men realize they've been lied to their entire lives.
Schopenhauer saw something that most men today still don't want to admit. The rules of attraction, they aren't fair, they aren't logical, and they definitely aren't in your favor. Society might preach equality, but biology has never played by those rules, and if a man ignores that, he's already lost before he even begins. Here's the brutal reality. Women hold the leverage in relationships, not because they're cruel, but because nature designed them to be the selectors. From the moment puberty hits, a woman's value in the sexual marketplace peaks almost instantly. Meanwhile, a man's value has to be built, brick by brick, through struggle, achievement, status, and survival. Schopenhauer was blunt about it. He wrote that women are suited to being the nurses and teachers of our childhood precisely because they themselves are childish, frivolous, and short-sighted. Now, he didn't mean this as an insult. He was describing an evolutionary truth. Youth and beauty are a woman's greatest currencies, and they instinctively know how to spend them. Look around at modern life. The average man today is trapped in a paradox. He's told to be emotionally vulnerable while women still chase dominance. He's told masculinity is toxic while dating apps are dominated by strong alpha men. He works himself to exhaustion, providing and sacrificing, only to be rewarded with divorce courts and paternity tests. It's a rigged system, and Schopenhauer warned about this long before Tinder or Instagram ever existed. He described women as big children all their lives. Again, not to insult, but to highlight how nature built them, focused on the present moment, driven by instincts that prioritize security and survival above all else. And here's where it gets dangerous, because modern women haven't just accepted this power, they've weaponized it.
Think about social media. Attention is now an economy, and the average man is the unpaid laborer. He simps, he orbits, he competes for scraps of validation from women who have zero intention of committing to him. Why does he do this? Because he's been fed a lie, that devotion is enough, that if he just proves his loyalty, she'll reward him. But Schopenhauer saw through this illusion centuries ago. He argued that women are systematically incapable of genuine, unconditional love, that their affection is always tied to utility. A man isn't valued simply for who he is, he's valued for what he provides. And the moment he stops providing, the love begins to fade. It sounds harsh, but when you look at it through the lens of survival, it makes sense. Women are hardwired to seek the best possible mate. If a man stagnates, she resents him. If he falls behind, she replaces him. And modern culture doesn't just allow this, it cheers her on. Schopenhauer divided men into two categories, those who serve and those who are served. The beta male exhausts himself trying to prove his worth, hoping for crumbs of loyalty. The alpha commands worth without asking. One begs for respect, the other inspires obsession.
You see this dynamic everywhere. The office worker who sacrifices his health for a promotion, thinking it'll finally earn his wife's respect, only to realize it never does. The gym rat, who transforms his body, only to discover that women are now attracted to him, but only for sex, not commitment. The simp, who spends his paycheck on a woman who ghosts him the second a higher status man enters the picture. These men aren't victims, they're volunteers. They signed up for the wrong game. But Schopenhauer didn't stop at diagnosing the problem. He offered the beginnings of a solution. And it starts with one principle. Survival means seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. The man who thrives today isn't the one who clings to outdated romantic ideals. It isn't the one who sacrifices endlessly, hoping devotion will be rewarded. The man who thrives is the one who learns the rules of the game and then plays to win. But here's the kicker. The game itself is rigged. It's tilted in favor of the selector, not the seeker. And that's where most men give up. Because the next truth, the hardest one to swallow, is that it's not even about women. It's about you. See, Schopenhauer uncovered something that modern psychology now confirms. Women don't compete like men do. Men go head to head. They fight directly. They flex their strength or logic openly. Women? They fight with something far more subtle and far more dangerous: emotional influence.
While men might battle with fists or arguments, women manipulate perception itself. They don't always demand, they make you believe it was your idea. They don't always confront you, they test you, quietly, invisibly. And most men don't even notice the game is happening until they've already lost. This is what Schopenhauer saw with terrifying clarity. He described women as being more present-focused than men, living in the now, constantly reading their surroundings. And that gives them an edge. They pick up on micro-expressions, tone shifts, body language, and social dynamics almost instinctively. A man thinks he's just having a casual conversation. A woman, on the other hand, is running an interrogation, testing boundaries, assessing value. And here's the painful truth. From the very first date to the moment divorce papers are signed, women are guiding the interaction through subtle, often invisible tests. The compliance test. How quickly will you rearrange your schedule for her? The frame test. Will you stand your ground or collapse under her emotions? The investment test. Are you chasing harder than she is? Most men fail these tests without even realizing they were being tested. Schopenhauer warned, women are instinctively crafty with a natural talent for deception, but not out of malice, out of survival. In a world where physical strength couldn't guarantee safety, emotional intelligence became their weapon. The woman who couldn't outmaneuver male psychology simply didn't pass on her genes.
This is the trap most modern men walk into blind. They confuse attention for genuine interest. They think her validation means she cares. But Schopenhauer revealed the darker reality. Women are most attracted to men who don't need them. The second you make her your purpose, the second you place her at the center of your world, is the exact moment she begins to lose respect for you. And this explains a lot. Why nice guys finish last. Why marriages fall apart after men sacrifice their goals and ambitions. Why women so often chase the emotionally unavailable man. It's not that women want to be treated badly. It's that they're biologically wired to seek men who stand above neediness. And nothing lowers your value faster than being needy. Every single interaction with a woman carries an unspoken power struggle. Most men lose without ever realizing the battle began. She cries to avoid accountability. She withholds affection to train compliance. She flirts with others to test your confidence. Schopenhauer called this the tyranny of the weak, a subtle but devastating power where vulnerability becomes leverage. The man who falls for it becomes a servant. The man who recognizes it becomes unstoppable. Now here's the hope that most men miss.
Schopenhauer's most liberating truth is that the first step to freedom is simply seeing the chains. Once you understand that female nature is biological, not personal, you stop taking it personally. You stop blaming, you stop begging, and instead you start commanding respect by the way you carry yourself. The most dangerous lies aren't the ones women tell men. They're the ones men tell themselves. The illusion that love is unconditional. The illusion that loyalty is permanent. The illusion that happiness can be built on someone else's validation. Schopenhauer's most devastating revelation wasn't about women. It was about human nature itself.
And here's where the script flips completely. After tearing down the illusions, he offered something far more valuable, a path to liberation, a way out of the endless cycle of chasing, serving, and suffering. The core mistake modern men make is believing happiness comes from female validation. Schopenhauer saw straight through this illusion. He wrote, "The happiness which we receive from ourselves is greater than that which we obtain from our surroundings." In other words, the men who thrive aren't the ones conquering women, they're the ones conquering themselves. Think about history's most remarkable men, artists, inventors, warriors, leaders. They weren't distracted by the endless chase for approval. They were too consumed with their purpose, too locked in on building something greater. Female attention wasn't their fuel, it was a byproduct. So what does this mean in practical terms? It means building yourself into a man so complete, so compelling, that you no longer chase, you attract. And Schopenhauer's philosophy gives us 3 pillars of unshakable masculinity to get there. Pillar 1, economic sovereignty. He warned that money is human happiness in the abstract, not because of what it buys, but because of the freedom it secures. The man who controls his finances controls his fate. Dependence breeds weakness. Independence breeds power. Pillar 2, philosophical depth. Most men live on autopilot. They accept the narratives they're fed. The exceptional man sharpens his mind, cuts through the lies, and thinks for himself. He reads, he debates, he questions everything. This depth of thought separates the leader from the follower. Pillar 3, physical mastery. The body isn't just decoration, it's the vessel of your will. Weakness here echoes weakness everywhere else. A strong body, disciplined and resilient, creates a strong mind.
When you combine these 3, sovereignty, depth, and mastery, you stop being controlled by illusions. You stop playing the game by rules stacked against you. Schopenhauer summed it up with brutal clarity. The safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy. This isn't pessimism, it's armor. When you stop begging for love, fairness, or approval, you paradoxically begin to attract them. Why? Because you're no longer desperate. You're no longer one of the masses competing for scraps. You've become the prize. The so-called battle between men and women isn't personal. It's biology playing out across millennia. The man who wakes up to this truth stops resenting women. He adapts, he builds. He sets standards so high that women either rise to meet them or get left behind. Schopenhauer's ultimate warning was simple but devastating. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. Most men spend their lives forfeiting themselves, chasing illusions, sacrificing purpose, bending to systems that were never designed in their favor. The choice is yours. You can keep running in circles, hoping devotion will one day be rewarded. Or you can step into your true power and rebuild yourself into the kind of man who doesn't need illusions at all. That's the real red pill. It's not about hating women. It's about loving truth enough to reshape your life in its image. And once you do, everything changes. This is where your real life begins.